Today's video dedication is brought to you with thanks from Dan Kirch. Elesh Norn, Mother of Machines, versus Obnixilis, Breya, and Sidisi. No turn 2 mana rock, but we do have 3 lands there, and we can start getting our planes going for Emeria, so I'll try keeping that. It's a turn 1 Soul Ring from Obnixilis, and that takes them into the Howling Mine, so we draw an additional card here. Yeah, just clearing 2 planes off the top. We'll have to discard to hand size, unfortunately. The mono black player plays a Phyrexian Reclamation, then Demonic Pact from the other mono black player. We draw into a Wall of Omens and a Windswept Heath. I'm going to start cracking fetches now, so that we don't have to crack them into the Obnixilis. And then it's Swiftfoot Boots here as opposed to the Wall of Omens, because we're getting enough card draw as it is, and Wall of Omens we can save for when our commander's in play. Also better to play Wall of Omens into the Tocassia's Welcome as well. White from Sidisi, a 3/2 zombie. Seeing a tap land from Breya on turn 3, followed by a Mana Crypt. And then getting down a Transformer, it is Slicer, high speed antagonist. And they decide to swing in over at the Sidisi player for 3 points of damage, so this thing will transform into Slicer Hired Muscle. And Slicer at the beginning of the turn is given over to the Obnixilis, and the Demonic Pact is going to draw 2 cards. So it's Arcane Signet. They've also got their mana well and truly sorted here. A Cabal Stronghold, they'll at least need some more basics before that starts generating mana. And then it is Tribute to Horobi, so each of us gets a rat token, and then we get attacked with the Slicer. Slicer is handed over to us at the beginning of the upkeep, and we clear 2 more lands off the top, so actually really glad to see the Howling Mine getting rid of some lands off the top for us. We'll again search our library so that we don't have to take 10 to the Obnixilis, and then let's just go for Tocassia's Welcome here. And then we have to attack here, so Slicer can go into the right at Obnixilis, who hasn't taken any damage yet. Slicer handed over to Sidisi, as you would expect. Now we see a Death Baron from Sidisi, so as the white would have suggested, this is most likely a zombie deck. The 4/3 swings in towards Breya, and the rat is swinging in over there as well. And then the vehicle swings in at Obnixilis, so the rat token jumps in the way of the white here. So because the token was thrown in the way of the white, that was destroyed or exiled, and they get a 3/3 Death Touching zombie token in tapped. We see a Westvale Abbey from Breya, and now casting a Manifold Key. Following that up with Mirage Mirror. And not done there, casting a 3rd spell, so this might be Transformers Tribal, Goldbug, Humanity's Ally. And not swinging in with the Slicer. And with Demonic Pact they've chosen You Lose the Game. I'm not sure what the aim is here. Anyway, Slicer goes under the control of the mono black player over here, so that will get exiled if they do lose the game here. Okay, and that is a stunning reversal. The next time you would lose the game, instead draw 7 cards and your life total becomes 1. So they want their life total at 1 for some reason. We gain control of a rat token, or have a rat token created under our control, so we do draw to Tocassia's Welcome. That's because of the saga over here, of course. And then we see a Warm Power Stone from the mono black player. And then the vehicle has to swing in. It goes in at the other mono black player, so they can just throw the rat in the way. And if we all want to see the back of this, then holding up a Death Toucher for the Slicer could be a good idea. Alright, so really not sure what Obnixilis' plan is here, discarding 3 lands, a Descend into Madness, and a Hellcarver Demon. We gain control of Slicer, as you would expect. Okay, so drawing into some non-land stuff here, some things that we can actually make use of our commander with. There's an Archivist of Ogma as well. The term Ogma always reminds me of Return to Oz, if anyone's ever watched that film. Hardly anyone I've ever spoken to has ever watched it, but maybe there's 1 or 2 of you out there that know of Ogma from Return to Oz. Anyway, drop of planes here. We'll get down as many permanents as possible. That can be an Arcane Signet for a little bit of ramp. And I don't think I'm going to go after the mono black player here against my better judgment. I should knock a player out while we've got the chance, but I'm half interested in what he's doing here. And I think it's only white spells that have you win the game with 1 life. And I can encourage the mono black player over here to take him out anyway. So let's go for the Archivist of Ogma, and we can carry on drawing cards because the Howling Mine is going to go down here, I imagine. Alright, there's a Mana Crypt as well. Yeah, so can play out a Mana Crypt just so that we don't have to discard anything to hand size, even though we are risking Lightning Bolts. And let's throw some Hexproof and Haste onto the Archivist. Then the Transformer goes in at the left here. See another Anthem effect in Lord of the Undead here, which is only really a Lord effect at this point because they do have the Phyrexian Reclamation in play, so maybe could have held off on that. Although we see a Crypt Breaker as well, so yeah, that is only 5 zombies in play, so can only draw 1 card from that at the moment. And yep, the Rat is going to take out the mono black player, and the rest are swinging in at us. I think they should be holding up a Death Touching token to go in the way of the Slicer. Alright, they decided to take a 4/4 token in towards Breya, so spreading the damage around here, we take these 2. So I'm going to have to take the 5 damage because I don't want them getting another token. And we'll block the Slicer with a Rat token. So yeah, the Obnixilis didn't have anything up his sleeve and just goes down to 0. Yeah, maybe he didn't want to scoop on us, but decided to kind of throw the game anyway, because he had to go. Yeah, not sure there. There we are, we see an Evolving Wilds from the Breya, and he does need another piece of coloured mana to get his commander into play, so likely see a trigger from the Archivist of Ogma for, I think, the first time ever on this channel. Draws us into a Knight of the White Orchid, which could be useful to us next turn. Now gonna continue to take damage from this Slicer, apparently. Yeah, we stand to take more damage from the zombie player, potentially, so I'm just gonna take the Lightning Bolt again. Alright, and leaving up a bunch of mana here, but I'm just going to hope that they don't have removal with the 4 cards that are in hand, and we'll likely try to get down the commander here. We draw into Recruiter of the Guard this time. Yeah, before we drop a land, we need to go for our commander first. And then don't want to equip the Swiftfoot Boots just yet. We'll have to risk trying to get down at the Knight of the White Orchid. They could have responded to an equip from the Swiftfoot Boots anyway. And we do manage to land that, so Tacassia's Welcome only ever triggers once. But we do get 2 untapped lands from the Knight of the White Orchid, thanks to our commander. Puts us ever closer to the Emeria. Okay, but even though it triggered twice, it only allowed us to search for 1 land, so we do need to be down on lands upon resolution of the trigger, apparently. So yeah, that's how that works. We do not get 2 lands, just the 1 in this instance. Did draw into a land from the enchantment though, and that's Inspiring Overseer. So we'll drop ourselves a Plains. And was hoping that we could go for Wall of Omens here, but we want Swiftfoot Boots on the Elesh Norn. Yeah, if I'd known that the Knight of the White Orchid wasn't going to get us 2 lands, then I wouldn't have played it there. I thought if its triggers are on the stack, then we definitely would have got the lands, but apparently that's not how it works, so anyway, Elesh Norn being equipped with the Swiftfoot Boots, and it's noteworthy that we haven't gained control of the Slicer. That is now a vehicle over on our opponent's side of the field. And we'll swing in over at the Breya player. Yeah, I was right about potentially taking more damage from the zombie player. A Cemetery Reaper, another Anthem effect now. 6 cards in hand over there. The Manifold Key now untapping the Mana Crypt, which puts them on 7 mana exactly. I'm praying that this isn't a Cyclonic Rift. Yep, an overloaded Cyclonic Rift. Our opponent goes down to 3 cards in hand. At least we are not going to take damage from the zombies. The Sidisi player getting down a Crypt Breaker at the end of the turn. Don't think he tapped down for any more card draw there before everything got bounced. I know he'll have to discard down to hand size, but he can fish things out via multiple means, thanks to the Lord of the Undead and the Phyrexian Reclamation. And now we see Breya Ethereum Shaper for the first time on turn 6. Discarded hand size over here was Ghoulish Procession, Tormod, Grey Merchant of Asphodel, and shockingly the Phyrexian Reclamation. I'd keep that over Lord of the Undead, to be honest. You can use this to fish out Lord of the Undead, so... Anyway, the Mirage Mirror becomes a copy of Slicer, and deciding to keep the Mirage Mirror copy. That is legendary, so they can only keep 1. But as far as I'm aware, with Mirage Mirror and copies, clones and the like, they don't have another side to them, so you can't transform them as far as I'm aware. Yeah, might be a mistake, but there might also be something I don't know about here. So the Transformers going in over at the mono black player over there. We're going to remain at 22 for now, deciding to throw away the Crypt Breaker. Alright, so with a grip full of stuff, that is a Vidalcan Orrery, which I don't think we're going to be able to make use of, unfortunately. So yeah, the Knight of the White Orchid not going to be of much use to us, so we can drop a land here. Definitely go for the Mana Crypt. And I think we're getting down the Elesh Norn with Hexproof and Haste while we can here, because otherwise Breya can respond and give it -4/-4 twice. So that means that we can go for the Arcane Signet first, so we'll have 3 mana left, and we can go for playing and equipping the Swiftfoot Boots. And we're going to have to discard 3 to hand size, unfortunately. Elesh Norn can swing in over here quite safely, I think. Try and get them to block with one of the Thopter tokens. But they just decide to take the damage, so get rid of Knight of the White Orchid and Archivist of Ogma. I don't think are going to be fast enough for us. And then I think it's the Inspiring Overseer. We've got multiple means of cantripping with creatures in this deck. And I think the Vedalken Orrery might be useful to us in hindsight. Next turn we'll have 2, 4 and 6 mana left, so maybe 7 we'll be able to go for an instant speed Angel of Serenity. And plus, discarding the small creatures and the small stuff means that Sun Titan can grab it back maybe. Gravecrawler for the zombie player, followed by the Death Baron. So they're not going to be able to block with the Death Touching Gravecrawler, they'll be able to swing in with it nicely though. Another Transformer, it is Flame War this time. Now seeing Goldbug swing in towards us and then deciding to pull away, so instead going in towards the zombie player, we get a Thopter, 2 Thopters. Okay, and then it's round to our turn, our opponent continuing to hold up mana with 3 cards in hand. Obviously the Breya's online now as well. Be nice to draw into a land here because we win the flip with Mana Crypt. Yeah, that would switch on the Emeria. Instead getting 2 Swords to Plowshares, can't complain about that. So it's a definite Vedalken Orrery, and then we've got 6 mana held up, no need to do anything on our opponent's turn really. So we could swing in at the Breya player with our commander, and that would put them on 12, it's a decent chunk of commander damage they'd be on. If they managed to buff either of their creatures somehow, or decided to double block, then we could Swords to Plowshares. So yeah, fine swinging in here. Fine using the Swords to Plowshares quite liberally as well, because we've got the Angel of Serenity. So attack in at the 4-colour player again. Not worthy that the sack outlet can only be activated at sorcery speed on the Flame War. I suppose they could also make a copy of something with the Mirage Mirror, but they'd be throwing away the Mirage Mirror then. So instead just throwing away the Flame War, which is fine with me. And we're just passing the turn over because we've got instant speed spells now. Lord of the Undead into play for the zombie player. And they need to be careful where they swing in here. The 4-3 Death Touching Gravecrawler goes in at the Breya. So Breya just decided to take it, going south of 20. Not worthy that it's turn 7 and the zombie player still stuck on 4 lands here. Not sure I would have thrown away the Crypt Breaker previously, especially when you're struggling on making lands. If they still had the Crypt Breaker here, then they could have tapped it down for a card draw at the end of our turn. And now we see a Vamp Tutor. I think that is from... Yep, that is from Breya, so it might be a board wipe. Although they're not sacrificing the Thopters or the Breya, which they could do at the end of the turn there, so it might be that it's not a board wipe. Maybe went for Skull Clamp on the Thopters or something. Getting bolted by the Crypt again, so going down to 12, but drawing into whatever it is that he tutored for. Tapping and then untapping the Mana Crypt. Okay, and that is a Darksteel Forge. This just gets rid of creatures, I think. Yeah, just creatures, so I mean we can still get rid of their creatures, but not the Darksteel Forge as it stands now. 2 cards in hand, so yeah, it's somewhat surprising that they tutored for that with only 2 cards in hand, but I suppose they can protect their board here at this point. They are up against white, so they still need to be careful with where they swing in. So deciding not to swing in at all, we'll go through to the end step so they are less likely to do anything. And I think we can get down the Takassia's Welcome, or do we just get down Cathar's Crusade here? I think Cathar's Crusade is alright. Not going to be able to swing in, but it's going to be difficult to swing in through the stuff that we're seeing now anyway. So cheating that in is alright here. We lose to Mana Crypt as well, going down to 17. And then we see an extra planar lens, that's really good, so... I mean, yeah, once again, we can just play on our opponent's turns. There's no need to swing in here. There's no real profitable attacks. So, yeah, just continue to hold up. Still missing the lands for Emeria, which we could be getting some decent amount of triggers off. Got that in on turn 1, don't forget, but have discarded a couple of basics along the way, so arguably shouldn't have done. Maybe could have gone for drawing some cards with Wall of Omens and maybe tried to make a land there. That could have been a play. Anyway, it's Sol Ring now for the mana woes of Sidisi. They could play Sidisi here. Instead deciding on another Lord in Cemetery Reaper. We've already seen that one, of course. And I don't think they discarded the white before, so we could see white again. No, I think they just wasted the 2 mana there, I'm sure. Has white been exiled? Oh, no, they went for a Profane Tutor. Found that in exile instead. Thought they'd just wasted the 2 mana there for some reason. The Gravecrawler continuing to swing in over there. He'll have to go wide. Yeah, those things are indestructible. I'm not sure if he's noticed that. We can't do anything to help him to get rid of indestructible, unfortunately. But as it looks to me now, that's a pretty bad attack, so... okay. Breya should be jumping in the way of the Lord of the Undead, really. And then you could gang up on the Gravecrawler as well, but instead just deciding to block like that. Suppose it keeps people from scooping at least. I think our opponent just lost to the Crypt again, so going down to 9. Gonna have to seriously look at activating Breya for some life gain. Breya sacrificing the Mana Crypt and a Thopter to gain 5. Then making the Mirage Mirror become a copy of the Breya. Is he making this mistake again? Or does he just want to be able to recast the Breya? I mean, Breya can sacrifice itself, can't it? Yeah. You can sacrifice 2 artifacts to Breya, so they could gain another 5 life. Deciding to keep the Mirage Mirror copy, so... yeah, maybe that is the aim here, to replay their commander. And right at the beginning of combat, the zombie player decides to scoop. Yeah, that's not nice. That could affect the outcome of the game. I don't think so. I think we're in a pretty commanding position here, but I haven't seen too much from the Elesh Norn, disappointingly. Yeah, what I want to do here is exile the Mirage Mirror with Swords to Plowshares while we've got the chance, but I have a feeling that our opponent will scoop to that. Do we just have to do it here, though? We'll go Swords onto the Breya. They'll gain some life, so maybe that will have them stick around. And then I feel better about taking the 3 damage from the Gold Bug. Yeah, it's not worth losing the Elesh Norn potentially. Over taking 3 damage, we'll just take that here. Worst case scenario, I can tutor up a Solitude and exile that thing if they buff it or do something crazy with it. Just taking 3 damage and going down to 14. And there we see Breya being cast again. It's noteworthy that they can't untap the Mana Crypt anymore with the Manifold Key to activate it. So yeah, not too worried about Breya at the moment. I think it is time to start making our opponent worry though, so we'll go for the Mana Crypt. We are going to go down a land here thanks to extra planar lens, so I don't think we were ever destined to do anything with Emeria. So extra planar lens triggers twice. We won't benefit from exiling a land twice though, so we'll just target the same land twice. We can say no, so don't have to exile 2 lands underneath the extra planar lens. And you certainly don't gain 3 mana from tapping a basic down with it. Then we can go for Tcassia's Welcome. Play the Recruiter of the Guard. That will trigger Cathar's Crusade twice. We'll put that on the stack first in case we want to add things to the stack before it resolves. We'll let these card draw effects resolve first, so Tcassia's Welcome goes on the stack. I'd rather tutor and then draw into a card after that. So it is Mentor of the Meek I think we're going for here. And then we get a second tutor, of course. Not really sure what we want here. Probably grabbing a Solitude is a good idea. And then we draw into Sanctuary Warden. So let's play out the Mentor of the Meek. We won't trigger our Tcassia's Welcome here because it only triggers once every turn. And we can go for Wall of Omens with our 2 mana as well, which we're not going to be able to pay into the Mentor of the Meek, unfortunately, but could have been 2 mana, draw 2 cards, which I never play Mentor of the Meek, but I'm thinking it's going to be pretty good in Elesh Norn. And with that we get a total of 6 triggers from the Cathar's Crusade as well, so 6 plus counters on all of our stuff. Alright, there is a Lauren, which is pretty useless apart from the fact that we can each draw cards, so could use it for that. Altar of the Brood we draw into as well. Let's go through to our draw step. We lose the Mana Crypt flip and go down to 11. And get into a Plains finally. Turn or 2 too late, but we'll throw that in. And I think, unfortunately, we just have to go for lethal here, because our opponent is going to have lots of indestructible things in the way, unfortunately, and will continue to gain life with the Breya, so Yeah, best to not play with our food, I think. I'll go back on my word immediately, actually. Let's go for Altar of the Brood, play with our food a little bit. Can throw down a Blade Splicer, which puts 2 Cathar's Crusades on the stack. We'll get a couple of 3/3 golems, and yeah, our opponent scoops anyway. We would have milled them a couple of times. I would have put the 2 mana into the Mentor of the Meek, would have got Cassia's Welcome, which only ever triggers once, so that's 3 cards we draw. The client isn't going to show us, but ultimately I was going to go Angel of Serenity, get rid of our opponent's board and turn in sideways. We would have got 6 triggers with this, or 6 targets, so could also have targeted Inspiring Overseer and the other 2 creatures that are in our graveyard, and once this thing leaves play we'll get those back into hand. So yeah, only saw what we can do with Elesh Norn right towards the end of the game there, but it was an interesting game nonetheless, I think. I'm sure we'll see more from Elesh Norn, Mother of Machines, but it ultimately relies on how well this video does. So if you're up for seeing more of it, then be sure to let me know in the comments section and leave the video a thumbs up. I do keep an eye on the views and the thumbs up, so be sure to support the video that way to help with YouTube's algorithms. You can also support via Patreon with the link in the description below as well, if you would like. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.